Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Sosada Sri Srimati Divine Grace Sesi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Sutta Sutta Sri Srimati's Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Ananta Gaudiya Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shlahadadas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Jamunamai Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Mahadani Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Gurung Garang. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 30, Text 2. Okay. Yam Yam Artham upādatte duḥkhena sukha-hetave tam tam dhunoti bhagavān pumān śocati yat-kṛte yam yam artham upādatte yam yam artham upādatte duḥkhena sukha-hetave duḥkhena sukha-hetave tam tam dhunoti bhagavān tam tam dhunoti bhagavān pumān śocati yat-kṛte pumān śocati yat-kṛte yam yam artham upādatte duḥkhena sukha-hetave tam tam dhunoti bhagavān pumān śocati yat-kṛte. Vaishnavis. Yam yam, whatever. Artham, object. Upādatte, one acquires. Duḥkhena, with difficulty. Sukha-hetave, for happiness. Tam, that. Dhunoti, destroys. Bhagavān, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pumān, the person. Chocati, laments. Yat-kṛte, for which reason? Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Whatever is produced by the materialists with great pain and labor for so-called happiness, the Supreme Personality, as the time factor, destroys. And for this reason, the conditioned soul laments. Purport. The main function of the time factor, which is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to destroy everything. The materialists in material consciousness are engaged in producing so many things in the name of economic development. They think that by advancing in satisfying the material needs of man, they will be happy. But they forget that everything they have produced will be destroyed in due course of time. From history, we can see that there were many powerful empires on the surface of the globe that were constructed with great pain and great perseverance, but in due course of time, they have all been destroyed. Still, the foolish materialists cannot understand that they are simply wasting time in producing material necessities, which are destined to be vanquished in due course of time. This waste of energy is due to the ignorance of the mass of people who do not know that they are eternal and they have an eternal engagement also. They do not know that the span of life in a particular type of body is but a flash in the eternal journey. Not knowing this fact, they take the small flash of life to be everything, and they waste time in improving economic conditions. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitami and Bhutale Swayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. So this is kind of relatively short purport, so I'm just going to kind of work through this and comment on different points Prabhupada's making as we go. So I'll start with the translation again. Whatever is produced by the materialist, so this verse and purport are talking about the materialist. So whatever is produced by the materialist with great pain and labor for so-called happiness, the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the time factor destroys. And for this reason, the conditioned soul laments. So for some reason, when I read that translation, it brought to mind an anecdote I heard in Hari Sari's Transcendental Diary. He was describing how he was with Prabhupada in India, and they were, maybe it was Vrindavan, maybe it was Mumbai, and they were in a room, and the room had a small window, and the window was set back from the outside wall, so say maybe this much, which meant there's like a little cubby hole. You know, they're inside, and they have the window there, but just there's like a ledge there and a little kind of a box, open box. So what was happening was a bird decided that, you know, it would be a nice place to make its nest. So it proceeded to do so. And it gathered all the, you know, the twigs and the leaves and the this and the that and put it all there, and it was nicely, and then, you know, Prabhupada and Hari Sari, they noticed that was going on, so they cleaned it all out. And then the bird was kind of, did it again. No, it's the point I'm making here is I'm elaborating on adding something to the final point Prabhupada made here that, or that Lord Kapila Dev is making here, that for this reason the conditioned soul laments, but it doesn't stop him from trying again. The bird was sorry. Oh, all that work. And okay, well, back to it. And it did it again. And, it built a whole nest again, and then they flushed it out again. And then the bird did it. The bird started from scratch a second time, and even a third time. And after the third time, they realized this bird's just going to keep doing it. So what they had to finally do is they had to get the construction guys to put a little wire, outside, because I said it's recessed in from the outside wall. So they had to block it off so the bird couldn't get in there. It was relentless, So, in addition to being lamenting, but that doesn't stop it. You see, it doesn't stop it. It doesn't stop the conditioned soul, the materials, from trying again and again and again, despite the fact that his efforts are, spoiled like that. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, the main function of the time factor, which is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to destroy everything. So it's saying that the time factor is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's a personal aspect to it. It's not just like a totally impersonal. I mean, it's impersonal. It doesn't have a form like that, but there's a personal aspect to it, and not the kind of. It's saying here it destroys everything, and there's no way of stopping it. You might be in a beautiful home, in a gated community, and that has armed guards. There's a lot of them out there, especially here in Southern California, probably all over. And it'll get in, and it'll destroy everything. Despite the fact that you're in, your gated community with armed guards, it's the supreme uninvited guest. It gets in somehow. And it's you could say it's an inside job. But actually, it's even, it's like even more than just an inside job. Inside jobs means like it's performed by some inner group, But this is even a more inside job than that. Andantarashta panamanu paramanu chayantarashtam. It's Krishna's within every atom. So this is like about as inside a job as you could get. The time factor is, you can't stop it. You can't stop it. It's going to destroy everything. Prabhupada says here, goes on to say, the materialist and material consciousness are engaged in producing so many things in the name of economic development. They think that by advancing and satisfying the material needs of man, they will be happy. But they forget that everything they have produced will be destroyed in due course of time. Well, another thing that they forget, or maybe that they don't think of, is that not only will the things be destroyed, but even before those things that they produce will be destroyed, they'll be destroyed. So like, for instance, I'm sitting here in this room now, so hypothetical, say I had something to do with, constructing or building this temple room. Okay, but who's going to go first, me or this temple room? This temple room's going to outlive me, right? Most likely, unless there's a super earthquake or some, bomb drops on it. The things that the materialists are making with great labor, which, as Prabhupada points out, will be destroyed in due course of time. He says it again later in the purport. It says, which are destined to be vanquished in due course of time. But before that happens, the very materialist who's producing them, they'll go. Getting back to the first example, the people in the gated communities who have these, beautiful homes and with et cetera, they're going to go before that beautiful home. See, so it's kind of like, it's really futile. They won't even be around to see the destruction of the things they worked so hard to create or accumulate or whatever. So reading on. It says, from history we see that there are many powerful empires on the surface of the globe, that were constructed with great pain and great perseverance, but in due course of time they have all been destroyed. Okay. Still, the foolish materialists cannot understand that they are simply wasting time in producing material necessities which are destined to be vanquished in due course of time. So Prabhupada repeats it, he says it again. This waste of energy is due to the ignorance of the mass of people who do not know that they are eternal and that they have an eternal engagement also. Okay. They do not know that the span of life in a particular body is but a flash in the eternal journey. And it's really a flash for the average person today, because, I mean, we live for 100 years at best, okay? But in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 17, Prabhupada talks about Lord Brahma, who lives to 311 trillion, 40 billion years. And he refers to his life as a flash. So, I mean, if his life is just a flash, where does that leave us? He lives for 311 trillion, 40 billion years. He says it's like, he compares it to like bubbles rising and disappearing in the Atlantic. Lord Brahma's life of 311 trillion, 40 billion years. So it's really just a flash for, an average, ordinary human being here in the Kali Yuga. Not knowing this fact, they take this small flash of life to be everything, and they waste time in improving economic conditions. So this is all referring, as we mentioned before, to the materialist and material consciousness. They don't know that they are eternal, and they have an eternal engagement also. Okay, so I'm going to try to, how does this apply to us? Okay, we kind of understand that point. How does this apply to us? How does this apply to us who know that we are eternal and we have an eternal engagement also? This point of trying to be happy by fulfilling material desires. Because here's the point. Despite the fact that, we're like devotees, aspiring devotees, despite the fact that we know that trying to fulfill the material desires won't make us happy, sometimes it's kind of challenging to just kick them out of our life altogether. There's that verse in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, can't remember, towards the end of the chapter, it goes, Avritam jnanam etena, jnanino nichavaduna, kamarupena kuntaya, duspadein analenacha. Thus a man's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust. And the next line is the really key one, which is never satisfied, and it burns like fire. See? So even people who know, like us, we know that we're eternal and we have an eternal engagement. Still, sometimes, especially in the early stages of devotional service, we find it challenging or difficult to just get rid of these material desires. They're unwanted for us. I mean, we're not in the illusion that we're going to become happy by satisfying these material desires. We know that, how worthless they are and everything, but still they persist. They keep, they're there. And so what do we do? Okay? Well, this question was raised in a very specific context by once among many times, I'm sure, but to Prabhupada when he was in Perth, Australia, a god brother of mine named Ganesh. They were on a morning walk, and I'll read you this excerpt from the conversation. At one point, Ganesh said to Prabhupada, Ganesh Prabhu said, Srila Prabhupada, how can the position be reconciled if in Krishna consciousness one of the two, the husband or the wife, wants to enjoy sense gratification, but the other does not? Should there be separation then? Prabhupada, no. They should be trained up. Sense enjoyment means not advanced in Krishna consciousness. As soon as one is advancing in Krishna consciousness, his sense enjoyment spirit will be reduced. That is the test. Bhakti padeshanu bhavo viraktir anyatra cha. The test is how you are. The test is how you are advancing in Krishna consciousness is the proportionate diminishing of sense enjoyment. That is the test. Just like cure of the disease means diminishing the fever, temperature. That is the test. So then Ganesh goes, what if that fever is not being diminished? Prabhupada says, then he should try to chant Hare Krishna mantra instead of 16 rounds, 64 rounds. That is the way. 16 round is the minimum. Otherwise, Haridas Thakur was 300,000. So you have to increase. That is the only remedy. Prabhupada says, that is the only remedy. If one has got determination, he will make progress without any trouble. So that's a good instruction right there, how to deal with these material desires. We have to increase our hearing and chanting, and Prabhupada specifically here is referring to chanting Hare Krishna. He's given this specific instruction to this devotee, Ganesh, that is how you deal with it. You know, you have to increase. That is the only, and I like the way he says here, that is the only remedy. So sometimes we tend to think that, well, actually, somebody's response to that would be, but Prabhupada, that's so hard, that's difficult to, chant, like increase the chanting, or even some devotees might feel, I've had asked devotees, hey, how many rounds are you chanting? And they go 4, 8, whatever, not at all. They feel like they don't have the determination. But I want to read you something, but this is Prabhupada's comment about determination, or not, weakness. There was this is in New Vrindavan, 1970, maybe 3 or 4, I'm not sure. So Prabhupada goes here. This is determination. He says, I have given my promise. Why shall I fall down? That is determination. I must respect promise. That is called dhrita-vrta. So he'll succeed. Where is the difficulty? There's no difficulty. But if we want to cheat, that is another thing. If we have no determination, we should not take up this life. Therefore, chance is given that stay with us for 6 months or 1 year. Be determined. Then be initiated. If you are not determined, what is the use of false initiation? So then this devotee raises his hand and says, Prabhupada, sometimes the weakness seems to be, and Prabhupada's response, weakness, you should rectify weakness. Why you should give any importance to weakness? Weakness is weakness. Rectify it. So in those Prabhupada's not prepared to elevate weakness to, a higher philosophical, like a legitimate reason. No, weakness is weakness. Rectify it. Notice we have free will, we have determination. Something's, in the way of us progressing, advancing in Krishna consciousness. We just have to be prepared to just, be more determined and do what's required. It goes on to say, then a devotee says, this promise is the minimum determination. And Prabhupada goes, he says, this promise of following 4 regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds daily, that is the minimum determination. And from there we must increase. And Prabhupada says, initiation means minimum. Beginning, that is the dictionary meaning. So, yeah, so basically we have to, because the question I raised was, how do those of us who we're aware that we don't want these material desires, and they're lingering, how do we deal with that? Well, the instruction we heard that we have to increase the hearing and chanting, and Prabhupada said that is the only remedy. And just to put this, give some perspective on this whole thing about chanting. Sometimes we tend to think that, it's a lot. Jeez, we have to chant 16 rounds. It takes a long time. It's difficult. But actually, this is something Prabhupada said in, I don't remember where he was, but he says, just like we have asked our students to finish 16 rounds chanting, minimum. Then he goes, 16 rounds is nothing. In Vrindavan, there are many devotees. They chant 120 rounds like that. So 16 rounds is the minimum. Because I know in Western countries it is a difficult job to finish 64 rounds or 120 rounds like that. Minimum 16 rounds, that must be finished. So point being, 16 rounds is nothing. It's like in our mind we're thinking, oh, this is so hard. No. We have to be enthusiastic. Rupa Goswami said, Utsahan nischayat daryat tat tat karma pavartana. The first principle is utsahan, enthusiasm. And if we have enthusiasm, it's a piece of cake. And if we lose enthusiasm, it's going to be very difficult. like Prabhupada in the lecture he gave in Dallas, Texas, he was talking about the deity worship, and he said, if you lose your enthusiasm for deity worship, he said, what is now we're calling archa vigraha will become galagraha, a burden on the head or a burden around the neck, So if you lose your enthusiasm. So it's the same thing like that with every different aspect of devotional service. If we're enthusiastic, it happens. If we're not, it's very difficult. But like about sales, they say sales is the hardest, easy work, but the easiest hard work. In other words, if you have enthusiasm, if you don't have enthusiasm, forget it. You're a dead duck in the water. People will just kind of like, no, right, see you later, buddy. But when you're enthusiastic, it happens. And you enjoy it, the people enjoy it. It's like that in devotional service too. If we're enthusiastic, we could do all these things, But if we lose enthusiasm, that's a problem. Okay, let's see if I had anything else I wanted to share with everybody. Oh yeah, on the point of increasing chanting, since I did mention about that, because Prabhupada mentioned this is the only remedy. This is an excerpt from a conversation in Vrindavan. Very interesting. Lokanath Maharaj says to Prabhupada, why have we chosen the 16 number to chant rounds? Prabhupada goes, he continues, why not less or more? Prabhupada goes, we have fixed up 16. And he says, Lokanath goes, we are chanting 16. Prabhupada says, we say minimum 16, minimum. And he goes again, why that 16? Prabhupada says, if you can chant 16,000, you can go. 16 rounds is the minimum. But if you're able to chant 16,000 rounds, that is welcome. We have got so much engagement. And that Prabhupada means chanting. And that'll become clear as I keep reading. He says, we have got so much engagement. Still we say, and he's meaning us now, the devotees, his disciples say, we don't find engagement. That is our misfortune. Haridas Thakur was engaged in chanting, and the prostitute came. She offered, let us enjoy. And Haridas Thakur's response was, yes, let me finish this chanting. So much engagement, and still we say, no engagement. So, the opportunity to chant is there. Kirtaniya Siddhahari. That's the Lord Chaitanya's instruction there, the message from that verse. And we're thinking, we're forgetting that. It goes on. He refused to have sex with a beautiful young girl because he had engagement, the chanting, his vow to chant. First of all, let me finish my engagement. That's Haridas Thakur thinking like that, saying like that. And we say we have no engagement. How unfortunate we are. Lord Chaitanya says, Kirtaniya Siddhahari, 24 hours engagement he has given, and we see there is no engagement. It goes on. So, Prabhupada's encouraging. He's encouraging, he's not insisting. There is, he has accepted that, okay, if we chant 16 rounds, that's, you've kind of done the basic minimum requirement, but it's good to increase. It's good to increase. Just to round it out, give a little bit more perspective, I'll read something from here. Reading from this book called Srinam Amrita. Okay, so this is supporting the point that if you do chant 16 rounds, you're in good standing. Prabhupada says, therefore, this is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya-lila, chapter 7, text 37. It says, devotees in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must chant at least 16 rounds daily. And this is the number prescribed by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Haridas Thakur daily chanted 300,000 names. 16 rounds is about 28,000 names. Prabhupada, here you go. This is a good thing. This is why it's important to read Prabhupada's books and read everything he has to say on a subject, so you get the proper understanding of Anyway, Prabhupada says here, there's no need to imitate Haridas Thakur or the other Goswamis by chanting the holy name a fixed number. There's no need to imitate Haridas Thakur or the other Goswamis, comma. But chanting the holy name a fixed number of times daily is essential for every devotee. So what I get from that is that Prabhupada's not insisting, that devotees have a bigger quota, but, no need, as he says, no need to imitate these, great devotees like Haridas Thakur and the 6 Goswamis. But what is essential is chant a fixed number of rounds, and he has suggested or stated just a couple sentences before that for Krishna conscious movement, 16 rounds. So that's, everybody has to chant at least 16 rounds, and if you can chant more, it's good. Here's another kind of good instruction. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, Chapter 16, Text 3. It says, in our preaching work, we deal with so much property, money, and so many books bought and sold. But because these dealings all pertain to the Krishna consciousness movement, they should never be considered material. That one is absorbed in thoughts of such management does not mean that he is outside of Krishna consciousness. If one rigidly observes the regulative principle of chanting 16 rounds of the Mahamantra every day, his dealings with the material world for the sake of spreading the Krishna consciousness movement are not different from the spiritual cultivation of Krishna consciousness. So I thought that was significant as well. So it's good to chant more, but if we're only chanting 16 rounds and we're fully engaged in devotional service, otherwise we're on good footing, But it is good to try to increase. A lot of, we'd be surprised how much more chanting we could do if we just make a little effort. I've had this. I personally had this experience because I have irregular sleep pattern, and so about 6 months ago, I can't remember exactly when it started, I just decided, rather than get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or whatever, and then find myself wide awake and not be able to fall back asleep again, and rather than just lie in the bed and toss and turn or whatever, I said, you know what, from now on, at some point I just decided from now on, when I get up, if I'm feeling awake, rather than try to go back to sleep, which is going to be difficult, I'll just get up and chant. And that's what I've been doing. It might be like 12:30 or whatever time. When I wake up, if I feel wide awake again, I just get up and chant. And then when I feel tired after it, and it's been working really well. I get a lot of rounds chanted, and then, I wound up getting to sleep anyway. And then I discovered, okay, well, I could also chant on the way out to Sankirtan, on the way back from Sankirtan. There's so many different places where rather than, we use the word space out, we could be chanting. You just stick your hand in your bead bag and Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, and you'd be amazed how many rounds you get done. And it enhances your Krishna consciousness. It's not just like you're, filling up time. It's you could feel the benefit, And so that's. So the materialists, they're bewildered, and they lament how everything is destroyed. But devotees, we have a different attitude towards the whole thing. It's like Prabhupada gives that example of the cat. When the cat catches the rat and it's holding in its mouth, it's doom. That rat is finished. And he's petrified and freaking out, and But the kitten is being carried by the same cat, in its mouth, and the kitten is enjoying it. So it's like that. Devotees, time is not our enemy. Time is the enemy of the materialist, but time is not the enemy of the devotee, because we know we have the proper relationship. We're using our time by engaging devotional service, and as Rabindranath quoted yesterday, that verse from said first canto. I don't know, is it the first canto or the second canto? But anyway, Ayur Vayati Vaipumsam, I can't remember the rest. But yeah, it's not. It's taking away the life of everybody except for the devotees who are using their time in the service of Krishna. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have any question or comment? Ravindranath Prabhu. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Even with a little effort or striving, they could do it. But if you assigned them 32 rounds or 64 rounds, most could not do it. They were not in the habit of doing things like that. It was beyond their ability or what they could handle. And so the ultimate result is that they say, well, I'm not going to do this because this is beyond me, and then they leave the whole movement altogether. So Prabhupada selected a number which most devotees could do, and therefore not have to leave the movement because of difficulty or trial or tribulation. So that's the main thing. And nobody is stopping anybody from doing more than 16 rounds because if you want to sit here or you want to go home and do extras, nobody says you can't do it. You can still do it, but it's not under duress, it's not under dictation, it's under your own option. And that's the main thing. And if you want to do that and not compliment yourself and make yourself think that you're better than everyone else because you're doing so much more, that's not a good thing. Better do less than complimenting yourself, patting yourself on the head, and building your false ego. That's not what we're here for. Better to do what you can do with a little bit of striving and leave it at that.
John, thank you.
Yeah, similar. You mentioned how it's good if one chants extra rounds like that, but what if one's in like a situation, let's say one's distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, and one's thinking, well, I'll just spend less time doing that and I'll chant extra rounds,
Okay.
for example. And there's so many different services, or I'm worshiping the deity, I'm cleaning the temple, let me just not clean the temple as much and chant more rounds, or, like that.
Okay, thank you for asking that question, because I stopped reading that excerpt at a certain point, but I'll continue because Prabhupada directly answers that question. Okay. So Prabhupada goes, some devotees have fixed a different, Lokanath Maharaj goes, different number than 16. Some are chanting 20 minimum or 25. Prabhupada says, yes, it should be increased. Then Lokanath says, Prabhupada goes, but don't decrease, increase. Therefore, one number is fixed. At least this much I shall do. And Prabhupada says, that is 16 rounds. Then Lokanath goes, but you are recommending 16 as minimum, and some devotees are choosing 20 as minimum, so he's bringing it back again. And Prabhupada says, so who forbids? Who says don't do it? And Prabhupada says, yes, that is wanted, but because you cannot do it, therefore we have fixed up the minimum, sankhya, means with a vow, numerical strength. Then Lokanath Maharaj goes, Prabhupada, if we chant more than 16 rounds, so here comes, here's exactly to your question. If we chant more than 16 rounds, so how can we know whether we are imitating Haridas Thakur or following his footsteps? Prabhupada says, imitation is also good. If you imitate Haridas Thakur, that is also your great fortune. Even if you imitate, imitating, it does not mean that you are condemned. Even if you imitate, that is also good. Then here it comes. If you have some other business, and if you say, now I am imitating Haridas Thakur, I cannot do it, that is very bad. I am busy imitating Haridas Thakur, Prabhupada says, that is not good, that is very bad. So Brahmananda is part of, he says, if devotees are asked for service and they say, oh, I have to chant, Prabhupada says, I am imitating, yes, I'm imitating Haridas. That is my first business. Prabhupada says, that is very bad. So you can't do it at the expense of your service. You have to do all your service, your prescribed service like that, but in, spare time like that, yeah, sure, if you can increase, rather than just, rather than shoot the spiritual breeze, which I've done for 52 years, and, talk about this, that, and the other thing with devotees, like when we're driving from the temple to Sankirtan or back, or on traveling Sankirtan. When I think back upon my time as a devotee, I could see so much time, which if I had it to do over again, I would, rather than talking about this, that, and the other thing, just stick my hand in the bead bag and chant more. That would have been a better utilization of my time. At least that's how I'm thinking and feeling. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, anybody else? Any other questions? Prema Sankat? Oh, I don't know. Oh, Prema first and then dear.
We all know about higher taste. We have to get higher taste. And there is lower taste also. So I'm just wondering, even if we know about higher taste, still we are attracted for lower taste, and we are going for that one. So why is like that?
Lower stage of chanting. There's 3 stages of chanting. There's the offensive stage, clearing stage, and pure stage, okay? So when you're in the lower stage of chanting, you haven't navigated through anartha nivritti, you're still attracted, you see? So you have to, avoid the offenses and try to increase the chanting. That's the point Prabhupada was making in that first excerpt I read. Ganesh was asking, but what if the fever doesn't diminish? And Prabhupada said, if the fever's not diminishing, instead of 16 rounds, try to chant 64 rounds. That is the only remedy. So we have to, do what's required to try to get out of this, the offensive stage, to go beyond the offensive stage of chanting. Because in the clearing stage, there is some taste. And then when you get to the pure stage, you're in love of God. You're experiencing, you're swimming in the ocean of love of God. But you have to get past that offensive stage. Because in the offensive stage, it's just, you're thinking like, what's the heck, why am I doing this? There's no result. But something's happening, you're getting purified, but the taste is not there. When you get past that, yeah. Dear Lita.
I like the point you mentioned, how if you start again, you will find so much more time to chant, and there is so much opportunity.
Yeah.
So my question is, like we see many people, they take to chanting, but they don't get inspiration to chant at even 16 rounds. What do you recommend to them from your experience?
They don't get inspiration to even chant 16 rounds?
Yeah, many people, they come, but they don't make up to 16. So what do you suggest them? What do you recommend them? How they can cultivate some inspiration to come to 16 at least?
What would you say?
You have experience, that's why I'm asking.
I don't know, you just have to encourage them in different ways, What would be ideal? What would be ideal is if I was experiencing a really strong taste for chanting myself, then I feel like I could do a pretty good job of trying to encourage them. But if I'm also, just kind of chanting and struggling, not really getting much of a taste, then it would be more difficult. But I can't think of a good answer right off the top of my head, other than the obvious things of, telling them, showing them Prabhupada's instructions, and pointing out different things that Prabhupada said of the benefit, Cheto, Darpa, and Amarjanam, just giving them the philosophy. That's there. Just tell them the philosophy, and if they don't respond to that, well, what can you do?
But are there some practical benefits that you have experienced chanting for so many years in your personal life that might be inspiring for them to hear?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Okay. In all honesty, I've experienced a taste. Even this morning I was experiencing a taste chanting. So that's there. It comes and goes, but definitely I've experienced a higher taste chanting. And also it's, definitely it regulates your life. I mean, over a course of time, you do become, it's not, black and white, but you do become less attracted or affected by the material energy, that's for sure. So, yeah, some benefits are there, and I've experienced those. Not as much as I'd like, but I keep trying. I have to keep working on it.
Yeah, since you asked, one thing I share with them is, I tell them like, we can get easily frustrated and angry. So if you chant, it helps you deal with those kind of issues. And anger and frustration is very common. Most people experience these things. So I notice some people kind of appreciate that. And that's why I was asking like how in practical life it helped you. Maybe you improved on some qualities, or you developed some better qualities that you are not so good at. Like one thing I share with people is doing the service, talking to so many people. It has helped me improve my communication, how to talk to people nicely.
Yeah, just from hearing you speak, it sounds like those are things from your own personal realization. You've personally experienced that, right? You've experienced those benefits, how it helps you deal with anger and frustration.
So that's why I was asking how it helped you.
Yeah, so that's good. You just from your own personal realization encourage them. Okay, so we'll end there. Thank you very much. Grunta Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You can have the garland, but where's your tila? Where's your beads? Where's your bead bag? You're coming.